It's time for a sneak peek. Sneak peek, sneak peek.
I think of myself as a positively lazy person. I am not interested in working 60 hours or 80 hours a week. I did it when I had no choice. I have no problems working hard, but to work hard to me is foolish. So if I have the access to talent, I want them to drive the business. My job is to support. I've always had the inverted pyramid philosophy of management, where the CEO sits at the bottom of the pyramid and my salespeople who are in contact with the customers sit at the top.
And now, on with the show.
When you're feeling the pressure, take a moment to step back, pick up your marbles, and choose to lead with levity. Join us on the Lead with Levity podcast for fireside chats that will fill your bucket and help you get back to being the leader you were meant to be. Now here's your host, Dr. Heather Walker.
Welcome back to the Lead with Levity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Walker, and I have the pleasure today of having a really good conversation with Eric Malka. Eric is the co-founder and former CEO of The Art of Shaving. He scaled that company to an international brand, sold it to Procter Gamble back in 2009. And since then, he has been running a private equity fund. He has been writing. He recently released On the Razor's Edge, which is a story of the art of shaving. And he just has so much experience to share with us today. So I'm looking forward to picking his brain and really diving into some of the lessons that he learned along the way and what we can extract from that to think about our future going forward. And you know, what does that look like for leaders? What can we learn from his story? So Eric, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And I'll try to share some of that stuff with you today.
Oh, I'm not even worried. Very curious about your story with the art of shaving and really the journey, some of the challenges and the struggles that you went through. Can you walk us through maybe when you started that company, did you imagine that it would have grown as to the point that it did? Did you imagine that you would have been able to sell it? What did you imagine when you first started this company?
Well, when I came to America, my dream was to build a huge business and sell it and, have the American dream. But by the time I started The Art of Shaving by selling my car in our kitchen, I was just trying to create a small business that would be successful. I had no ideas that it would become what it became. But I did aspire for that internally. That was my dream. But I kept my aspirations. I managed my aspirations, if you will.
Okay, where are you originally from?
I was born in Morocco and
Nice.
I grew up in Montreal, Canada, and came to New York City in 1985.
Okay, okay. And you said that you sold your car out of your kitchen. Did I hear you say that correctly? Is that right? Did you say
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The artistry was my fourth business, and my third business wiped me out. I was only 28 at the time, and all I had left was a nice little BMW I had purchased. My wife and I decided to sell that car to open a small store on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and we called it The Art of Shaving.
Wow. So you took what some might consider a tragedy, right? And you turned it into an amazing comeback story. And I
That's
can
right.
imagine going through something like that, maybe even feeling like, oh God, did I make a mistake? Am I enough? So how did you push through those moments?
Well, first of all, I don't have any plan B, so that helps. And really, it's grit, and inside all obstacles is a blessing. And for me,
Mm,
that blessing was when I lost everything in my third business. I was so traumatized and insecure about my ability to succeed as an entrepreneur that I thought to myself, what is the smallest business I can start with $15,000? How can I start tiny. And that has become one of my philosophies to really think big, but to start small. And I was kind of forced into it by circumstances, and they became, a blessing in my life to start small, to really define the business foundation and to really work to be in that business. Sometimes, and I've had situations later on in my career where I had so much more resources that we failed miserably because we try to go too fast and invested too much. And so sometimes disadvantage can be an advantage.
Yes. That's really interesting. I know so many specialists who kind of have these side hustles, right? And these side gigs, and they imagine themselves starting a business one day. But the challenge that they have is they're so emotionally invested in what they do that they have a hard time thinking about starting tiny or starting small because they think that they need to be Mackenzie, or they need to offer all of the things, all of the services
That's
at
right.
a robust level. And I'm wondering, did starting with just the art of shaving with the razors, did that give you a little bit of distance emotionally to say, okay, it's just razors?
Not so much that as much as I didn't feel I was making a big risk because $12,000, would have disappeared a couple of trips. It doesn't
Yeah,
take long to blow through that money, right? And the
right.
car was a depreciating asset. So for me, when people tell me that I took risk, I say, I had nothing to lose. When you have nothing to lose, you have nothing to risk.
Mm.
It's later on when we started to really build and scale the art of shaving that we were risking everything we had built up to that point to double down and to grow it. I'm not sure that answers your question, but
I think it does answer my question. You were all in terms of this is what I got. I'm putting it into this venture.
well, hold
What?
on. I
Yeah.
kept my day job
Ah,
for
you had a
six
day
months.
job. Okay.
I had to pay the rent. And the funny story is then we were about a week away from opening the store, and my wife turned to me and she said, "Isn't it time for us to find someone to work in the store?" And I said, that's you, baby.
You are
You're the
employee
store
number one.
manager. That's right. I'm keeping my day job. You're staying in the store. I'll help you on the weekends when I'm off. And that's how the first 6 months were. We bootstrapped,
Mm.
did what we had to do.
There are so many mom and pops in New York. I'm originally from New York. I wasn't raised there, but I'm wondering, how were you able to sort of break out of a mom and pop store? What was the turning point? What do you think really contributed to that?
Well, we know what contributed to it. Within 6 months of the opening of our first store, the New York Times took notice of us and wrote a two-page article in
Mm,
1997 in the Sunday Times. Now, back then, there's no internet. There's no social media. The New York Times was it. And when you were featured for 2 pages in the New York Times, it went viral.
wow.
Everyone in the country read it. And overnight, our business blew up. We started doing 30 days worth of sales per day. So that was
Okay.
the lucky break. And I quit my job immediately and said, okay, we're all in. Now, 10 months after opening the first store, we opened our second store on Madison Avenue. And if New York, you know that that's a very prestigious area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was a huge, huge success. And that's when we incorporated the barber services as a added element to the concept. And that really blew up on its own. Tremendous amount of press, a lot of attention. It was an innovation in the men's grooming world. And those two stores generated so much profits. After year two, we were making probably over $750,000 a year in profits. That allowed us to really
Really scale at that
scale
point.
organically. That was our big break.
There's a huge gap in here, Eric, that I have to just point a
Well,
light
there's a
on,
huge gap. We
right?
only
There's
have an hour.
we only have, you're right, and less than that, honestly. You weren't born with all of this knowledge. What helped you build your business acumen? to be able to go from, okay, I have a New York Times feature article, and yes, I'm getting some press, to now
Look,
I'm moving into Madison Square and we've got multiple stores and all of this. It requires some business acumen.
that's right.
Yeah.
So my wife and I have innate business acumen, right? We all have certain skills we're born with that if we hone those skills, they can become very powerful. For me, it was a natural instinct of business acumen. For my wife, it was impeccable taste,
Mm,
design, and an ability to create beautiful things with their products, stores, and so forth. So we had both sides of the brain working together. I didn't go to college, but I had the fortune of working with some incredible people. And they used to call me the sponge because I was learning everything. I was absorbing everything I was seeing and hearing. I was reading book. I could not stop learning about business, about how to do things. I was practicing with my first three businesses through
yeah.
successes and failures. And I constantly had to learn. Every day I had to learn what I needed to know to get to the next level tomorrow. And if you continuously learn, you're continuously pushing the ceiling. If you stop learning, that ceiling is going to limit you. And I think that was one of the things that really contributed to my success. Some real innate skills that I was able to really hone over time, and then eventually the art of shaving was off to the races. And
Okay.
frankly, my job was not to mess it up at that point. If I managed to do that, we're going to be great.
What? Yeah, and you did, obviously. Obviously, I mean, you didn't mess it up. You were able to to run it successfully. What would you say, what are some books or resources that really helped you along the way?
Well, in the early days, there weren't that many books, like we have now. Now we have so many incredible books for entrepreneurs,
Yes.
including mine. I'm going to put my name out there. But back in those days, as I said, I was lucky to work with some brilliant people that I learned from to really round up my skills. I worked, for example, my second business was I was number two in the company. I worked with a brilliant guy, and we built a government contracting facility in Puerto Rico that we grew from
Hmm.
1 million to 25 millions in 2 years.
Wow.
So that was, to me, that was like a master's degree in business.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
And you were still in your 20s at that point, right?
I was 24 to 26, and I made quite a bit of money early on, which was another blessing. I messed it up. I lost it, but that was a blessing in itself because it really taught me that money comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
When you're young, you think, that's it, I made it, I'm done.
I hit the
And
dollar amount that I thought was rich, and
that's
now I'm
right,
good to
I'm
spend.
rich.
Right. But you're right, money does come and go, and as long as you know how to make it and how to keep it, you can always come back, right?
Yep.
So
Hopefully
hopefully,
you're building. You're not going back and forth. But yes, that's correct.
exactly, exactly. So speaking of building, as your company started to grow and you started to bring on people, that had to come with some new challenges because you were so used to being this solopreneur. It's me, it's my wife, we're in it, we're making this happen. Can you walk us through
Well,
what? Go
yes,
ahead.
for sure. First of all, the first 18 months, my wife and I spent every day in the stores helping customers. And that was the biggest gift we've ever had because it was like having a focus group of thousands of customers telling us what they liked, what they didn't like. It made us understand who our customer that we were serving was and what they wanted in their deepest thoughts.
Mm,
So when we left the stores, we knew exactly how to build this brand. And that is a huge gift. Learning how to hire, manage, retain employees is probably the hardest part of scaling a business.
yes,
And
because
that was
people are
a
messy.
People are messy. Products don't
Yes.
complain. I think I had an innate ability to inspire and lead and organize. So that was really helpful. But I had a huge learning curve in learning how to hire the right people and create structures and processes to grow
Mm.
and to leave the stores. Fortunately, by year three, we no longer worked in our own store, so it forced us. I had a customer that used to be a headhunter for Fortune 500 companies. He used to
Oh,
come into the
wow.
store every week with his limousine to get a shave and a haircut, and we befriended each other. And he said to me two things that I will always remember. One, he says, "You build a company from the head down, not from the tail up." The second thing he said is, you and your wife, nobody will ever run those stores better than you and your wife.
Mhm.
You are running them at 100%. However, you're limited at 100% of two stores.
Yeah.
If you want to scale, you have to be willing to run those stores at 80%, but you can have 100 stores, which is a
Right.
lot more than running them perfectly for two stores. So right away, I had to learn how to delegate, how to manage at a distance, how to get the right people to take ownership. And I think one of the things I'm very proud of is the culture we built. So I'm a very structured and organized person in my life, and that's a skill that I bring to the table, right? We all have a skill. If you leverage your strengths, work with that. For me, it was structure and organization, and that's
Mm.
really important when you're managing a lot of people. We were managing 3 to 5 person teams all over the country. We had 5 people in Dallas, 5 people in San Diego. It's very hard to manage, especially in those days. We didn't have the
Right.
technology that we
Exactly.
have today. So we had to really create processes that allowed us to manage performance. We needed these people to come into the store on time, to have a good attitude, to dress well, to turn business into gold. This was quite a challenge.
Mm.
And I think we created an incredible brand, which allowed us to attract incredible people. I think a lot of companies forget that you're not just marketing to customers, you're marketing to your vendors, you're marketing to your employees,
All the time.
all the
Yeah.
time. I always thought it's a two-way interview when I met people. I said, you need to interview us. I wanted to see them wanting this job, like more than
Mm.
anything, more than any other
Exactly.
job. I was a sucker for that. I mean, you could be not that good or not experienced, but you said, I would love to work for your company. I was a sucker for passion. So we hired very passionate people. A lot of customers thought they were owners many times because they were so engaged, they cared so much. And, only owners have that level of engagement and caring.
Mm. So I'm curious, Eric, a lot of our listeners are high achievers, right? They get a lot of things done. They have teams of their own. And one thing that I've heard come up again and again is I have a hard time delegating. Like if I could do anything better, it would be that. How did you have any decision rules that you use or anything that has helped you?
Well, in retail, there's not a lot of decision rules to be made,
Hmm.
right? You have to really, we train them a lot. And for me, I'm not a workaholic. I do not believe in doing everything myself. I believe in doing as little as I can. I think of myself as a positively lazy person. I am not interested in working 60 hours or 80 hours a week. I did it when I had no choice.
Hmm.
I have no problems working hard, but to work hard to me is foolish. So if I have the access to talent, I want them to drive the business. My job is to support. I've always had the inverted pyramid philosophy of management, where the CEO sits at the bottom of the pyramid, and my
Hmm.
salespeople who are in contact with the customers sit at the top.
Yeah.
And I've always been a coach. I'm a coach today, but I've been a coach my entire career. I hire somebody that's great, and my job is to give them clear instructions and targets and goals and to support them as much as I can and as much as they need to achieve those goals. And I do that selfishly, but to the employee, it feels really good.
Hmm. Hmm. And it sounds like passion is that secret ingredient, right?
100%.
Yeah. And looking back, would you say that that was a good decision to go for passion as this is the thing, this is the key differentiator with my people?
It was instinctual. All the things I'm talking about now are things that I've reverse engineered and thought about later on and said, we did this and we did that. But I'll give you an example. When Neiman Marcus was thinking about doing a deal with us in
Hmm.
1999, the president of Neiman Marcus walked into our Madison Avenue store unbeknownst to me.
Okay.
He mystery shopped us. And later
Wow.
on, after we signed the deal with them, he said to me, because we had a really beautiful relationship, he said to me, the reason I approved doing business with the Art of Shaving is because when I went into that store and that salesperson helped me at that level of, she was so knowledgeable about the products. She
Mm,
was she was top level customer service. She was engaged. She was passionate. That's what told me that you were going to be successful at the end of the day, and we wanted to be part of that success. So, these are examples of what really encouraged me to follow in that instinct. But sometimes, passion bit me.
hmm.
And later on, I refined it by understanding that compatibility and capabilities need to go together. You cannot have one without the other.
Right, right. I'm with you on that. And I'm curious, when we're talking about compatibility, capability, passion, all of these things, sort of building your company up to the point where it was ready to sell. Selling to P&G, that had to be a huge decision for you. How did you know that you were making the right move?
Listen, if Gillette wants to buy your little shaving brand, it's probably a really good idea if
Hmm.
you want to sell your business. In my case, that was my goal. It was my goal for 8 years prior to, I knew my range of price and I knew my range of timing to sell the business. And we were right in that spectrum.
Wow. So that was your goal all along, and you were able to achieve that vision. That's such a beautiful thing, Eric.
Clarity of vision and it is the mother of manifestation, in my opinion.
Mm, I completely agree with you. So some people, after something like that, might fall into a funk or, all right, I did the thing. I am successful on paper. Now what?
I want to finish with one final thought on the previous point is that we were also very proud that P&G retained 90% of our people,
Mm,
which is a huge number. They always retain
yes,
a large portion, but 90% was
it's
retained.
huge.
We had great people, and we call it a great cast of character, which you'll find in great brands.
So that was success then. I need to get this company to a point where I can scale it and sell it, right? How do you define success now? How has that changed?
Well, it's very simple. The analogy I use is the airplane, right? You have to put your oxygen mask on before you put your child's mask on, right?
Hmm.
The art of shaving was putting on my mask on, giving me
Mm,
power, giving me resources, giving me everything that I had aspired for. And with that power and those resources, I could now help others. And this is what I've really been soul searching for the last 15 years and came to realize that I've always been passionate about helping people and most specifically entrepreneurs and the
mm.
underdogs. I was an underdog. I was extremely lucky. A lot of underdogs are not. And how I define success right now is when people tell me that I've made a difference in their lives or their business, which is the same thing.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And you're right. Others are not always so lucky. And I think some of that's because of the way we're educated, right? And the information that we've been given. But then also, are you going out? Are you taking the time to educate yourself? Are you taking the time to break some of those like barriers to
Yep,
learning about other aspects of business and marketing and sales and operations and everything that you need to be able to actually go out there and be successful. So, what's a piece of advice that you would give to someone who wants to build their dream from scratch?
it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. A lot of entrepreneurs have a sprint-like mindset, and that is the kiss of death for many of them. That's why the odds are so stacked against entrepreneurs, is because we try to build skyscrapers without a foundation. These take time. A rocket ship takes 12 years to build, takes 4 days to launch it to orbit. So build your rocket ship, take time, start small, even if you're thinking very, very big. There's plenty of time to scale.
I can feel the we talk about levity on this show, and we talk about it in the sense of life gives you all of these pressures, right? There's pressure all around. And if you're not careful, that pressure can kind of weigh you down so much that you can't see opportunities, you can't see joy, you can't
Yep,
experience those things. But once you start to peel those off of you and take all of that off, you float back up to the surface. Um,
that's right. And
yeah.
there are external pressures, but a majority of the pressure we have is self-imposed. And you started this podcast talking about the journey. And for me, I will tell you that you're going too fast if you feel anxious. If your
Mm,
anxiety is, the higher your anxiety, the faster you're going. You need to slow down. You need to regulate your anxiety so that you can be more effective as an entrepreneur, both on a cognitive, a physical, spiritual level. It's not a sexy thing to talk about, to go slowly, but
no,
slow and steady wins the race. You look at anyone from guys like me to Jeff Bezos, it takes 20 years. It's not a 5 year business plan. It's not a 3 year business plan. I'm sorry. You can
hmm
have a 3 year plan, but those plans that have charts like this, they're not realistic. Sometimes it happens, but those are anomalies. You don't want to be counting on being an anomaly. You want to be at least putting the odds in your favor. And I believe enjoying the journey is a very important lesson. It's hypocritical for me to talk about this now because um, I was not enjoying the journey as much as I would have liked to. It was a fun journey, no doubt
hmm
about it, but I always had stress and doubt and,
yeah,
pressure that I was putting on myself. But this is the wisdom I'm trying to give to the next generation about what I've learned. The
yes,
destination,
yes.
it is not the be all. When I reached all my dreams in life, financially and otherwise, I was still miserable. I still had something, this angst inside of me. And that was another gift because I was able to get to that point at the age of 40. So I could really focus, uh, first of all, have the realization that money, beautiful family, kids, homes, cars are not filling that void. That internal void is something that is not filled from the external material. It's
hmm
beautiful to have those things, but then there's a journey of self-realization that is really incredibly important in really becoming the best version of yourself, ideally.
Wow. So, Coach Eric hops in his time machine and goes back in time to talk to stressed out, anxious, younger version of himself who is looking around left and right and is saying, "Oh, but there's an opportunity over there. Oh, we should be moving faster. Have we thought about this yet?" It's hard to get out of those things sometimes. Sometimes it's hard to even see how bad it is, right? When you're in the middle of it.
Listen, I was in my 30s. I was hustling. It's
Yeah.
fine. That's the time to hustle. And I'm not sure that that advice would have served me well at that point. But, listen, if I had a little bit more emotional intelligence, maybe I would have avoided some mistakes back then with my employees, for example. You know, I would get frustrated at times. I was always respectful, and we still friends to this day, which is a good sign. But yeah, I mean, you can listen. I don't live in the past. I've never regretted one thing one day in my life. So
Wow.
I just move forward. I try to share my wisdom. You cannot achieve 55 years of experience in 25, 30, or 35. I mean, those are mathematically not. You can be smarter than I am at 25. I give you that. You can be more clever, but you will never have my experience at a young age. And that's what I'm trying to share here. And also, until you go full circle with your success, you haven't experienced it. And if you haven't experienced something, you don't know what it's about. So that's really where I come in right now, sharing those two things, experience and that experience.
Wow. So thank you for sharing that with us because I think that it's helpful. A part of me, I think I'm a little younger than you. A part of me looks at
Probably.
that and says, "But I want it now. I want the experience now. I want I want all of these things." And it's difficult sometimes because yes, you can get wisdom and you can learn from others. And that's why we encourage people to read and to listen to podcasts and to hear from others so that you can draw some of those insights, as many as you can. But
But enjoy where you are.
yeah,
It's like kids. I don't know if you have kids, but for
I
me,
do.
my 12-year-old wanted to be 15, and now he's 15. He wants to be 18. And in my mind, I'm thinking, just enjoy being 15. Enjoy
Yeah,
being
just
12.
wait for it. You're gonna
Just
get bills and you're gonna have to work and yeah,
enjoy it.
just
Enjoy
enjoy.
where you are in that journey. It's just a journey, and if you're lucky enough to get old, then it's a great thing. Maybe you have aches and pains, but it's part of that journey.
That's right. That's right. So, what is the next stage in the journey for you? What are you envisioning next?
I want to build a portfolio of brands that have my and my wife's fingerprint on it.
Okay.
That's really what we're trying to build with strategic brand investments, to build tomorrow's entrepreneurs and their brands. That's really what we don't have the hustle we used to. So we have to find brilliant people with good ideas that have that hustle. And with our experience, our expertise, our resources, and our connections, we can give them a better chance of success. And in return, we benefit from that success. So it's a win-win.
So, are you running an incubator program?
It's not really an incubator. It's more of an angel. It's between an angel fund and a VC fund.
Okay.
We invest in early stage companies that have already proven their products or in the marketplace, but have not really reached a scalable model, and they haven't really gotten real investors on board. Our job is to get them from that point to that point, which is where most entrepreneurs stumble.
Yes. Okay. Shark Tank style.
Shark Tank style, but private on my own. Pick
Okay.
and choose. I'm not interested in working with 500 companies. I work very closely. My team works very closely with each founder, so we're very discerning. We don't have a lot of time, and we want to make sure we're investing in the right people.
Well, if you're interested, this would be a great opportunity to shout out the kind of founder and the kind of products, the kind of businesses that you're
Sure.
interested in.
So we like to invest in our space, which is luxury men's grooming, the beauty industry, and the wellness industry. Consumer goods is what we do. We like brands more than companies, so we're not looking for people that are selling a product well. We want somebody that's building, developing a brand. And we want to work with founders that have certain characteristics that we look for in founders. I won't give you the whole list, but we're just looking for people we enjoy being with. My two guiding principles are different than Other funds because I don't have investors behind us, so I can do whatever I want. My two guiding principles are it has to be fulfilling and fun. The fulfillment is in having the impact. The fun comes from being associated with the founder. So that's, and if we can get money as the financial piece, as the third element, then it's a great business.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, kudos to you for investing in that next generation of entrepreneurs. I think now is a really amazing time to find some really good entrepreneurs too.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
absolutely.
So, Eric, do you have any final thoughts for us as we close
Oh,
today?
anything I haven't talked about is in my book.
Tell us real
So,
quick, tell us about your book. What is your book about?
the book is first of all, the book has been written as a memoir, a business memoir. So it tells the story of an entrepreneur that goes from birth to post acquisition and how to manage your money and your health and so forth. So it's really a 360 business memoir, but I didn't want it to be a storybook. I wanted it to be a book that has a lot of golden nuggets for entrepreneurs at whatever stage they are in their journey. So a lot of the lessons we talked about today, reverse engineering and really looking at my entire career and listen, I'm not a special person. I was a kid from Montreal, no money, no education, not even a green card. I came to this country. Why did I make it? I'm a very, very small percentage of those who make it.
Yes.
Why? The question of the book is why me? And what can we learn from, what I did to avoid the pitfalls that 99% of entrepreneurs fall into? And that's what really the book premise is about, to try to understand that. And I call entrepreneurs um, treasure hunter in my book because a business plan is like a treasure map. We're looking for the treasure, and there's no, it's not a straight shot. We
No,
know
it's
where
not.
we are, we know where we want to go, and sometimes we go backwards, sometimes we go sideways, sometimes we face dangers, sometimes we meet people and opportunities that help us go forward. So it's a journey. It's really a journey of self-discovery, and I want to make entrepreneurship a beautiful experience, not one of suffering and pain in the process. And that's really what the book is trying to talk about.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm really glad that you broke that down for us. Thank you so much, Eric. And if anyone is interested in learning more about you and what you offer, where should they go?
You can go to ericmalka.com or strategicbrandinvestments.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, sir. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lead with Levity podcast. To get resources mentioned in this episode and find out what we're all about, check us out at leadwithlevity.com.